It was the kind of night where nothing was supposed to happen. The stars outside blinked like they always did, faint behind the curtain of soft clouds. My small bedroom was dim, lit only by the nightlight, shaped like a moon that sat on my shelf. The hum of the ceiling fan whispered above me, a quiet lull that usually helped me drift to sleep. My books were neatly stacked, my shoes tucked under the bed, and the world, as far as I knew it, was quiet. I had already turned on my side, ready to sleep, but something wasn't right. I couldn't name it at first. It was that odd feeling, like the moment right before thunder, when the air changes but nothing has happened yet. My eyes opened again. That's when I saw it. There, on the far wall, the one that had been blank my entire life, was a door that hadn't been there before. I sat up in bed, slowly, not quite afraid yet, just unsure. The door was tall, much taller than the others in the house, and its wood was old, darker than anything else in my room, like it had been built from a forest that didn't exist anymore. Its surface was smooth, but had carvings, faint ones, like vines or maybe letters I couldn't read. There was no handle, no knob, just a small circular dent in the center, as though it was waiting for something. I blinked. I rubbed my eyes, but the door was still there. For a moment I wondered if I had fallen asleep and was dreaming, but everything else felt too real. The hum of the fan, the soft scratch of tree branches brushing the window, the familiar scent of old pages from my bookshelf. It was all there, and so was the door. I slid off the bed and stood barefoot on the floor. The wood beneath my feet creaked quietly, and I tiptoed forward, unsure whether I should get closer or run for help. But who would believe me? If I told my parents, the door might be gone by the time they came in. I'd seen enough strange stories to know how those things worked. I reached the door and raised my hand. The moment my fingers touched the circle in the center, the carvings around the frame shimmered, just slightly. It wasn't light like from a lamp or the moon. It was more like something was waking up inside the wood. And then I heard it, a whisper, very faint. From the other side, I pressed my ear against the door and I swear I heard my name. Not shouted, not spoken clearly, just breathed. I took a step back. I didn't know what to do. Open it, call someone, wait. That's when I noticed something even stranger. The air in my room had changed. It wasn't colder or warmer, but it felt fuller, like something unseen had entered, like the walls themselves were waiting. And then I heard my name again, a little louder. Eli. It wasn't a threatening voice, not quite a comforting one either, just ancient, as though it had spoken my name 1,000 years ago and was now remembering it again. I didn't know what waited behind that door, or why it chose to appear now, but I knew one thing. Something wanted me to open it. Part 2. The Whisper Beyond the Wood. Are 700 words, and 6 minutes. The door didn't creak when it opened. It didn't groan or moan like doors in stories always do. It moved silently, as if the air itself parted for it. Behind it was not another room. There was no hallway, no brick, no wallpaper. There was mist, glowing softly, like the kind that hangs over rivers at dawn. It curled and shimmered, yet it didn't spill into my bedroom. It stayed on the other side of the threshold, as if held back by something invisible. I stepped closer. The floor changed just beyond the door. It looked like stone, but smooth and dark like water frozen in motion. And in the mist, I could make out faint shapes, a tree, a stairway, maybe even a bridge. Everything seemed suspended in silence. The voice didn't come again, but I felt its presence, like it was waiting for me, like it had brought me here on purpose. I did something strange then. I looked back at my bedroom, my unmade bed, my tiny bookshelf, my posters, the nightlight still glowing softly on the shelf, everything I had known, safe and normal, and I realized I had a choice: stay or step through. I don't know what made me do it. Curiosity, wonder, maybe even hope. But I reached forward with both hands and stepped into the mist. For a moment, nothing happened. The air around me was still, the world behind me gone in a blink. The door vanished the moment I stepped through it, leaving nothing but that strange, glowing fog. And then I heard a sound, like wind brushing through leaves, but slower, heavier, as if something enormous had just moved. The mist began to clear. I found myself standing on a path carved through a deep forest. Not an ordinary one. The trees were tall, unrealistically so, and their bark shimmered faintly under the starlight above. Yes, starlight, because the sky was not dark, but painted with streaks of silver and deep violet, as if night itself was alive. The air smelled like lavender and cinnamon. That's when I saw the first one. It stood beside a tree, tall and narrow, cloaked in layers of translucent cloth that danced without wind. Its face was hidden, but I could feel its eyes on me. It didn't speak aloud, but something filled my mind. He has entered. The one the door chose. I wasn't sure if I was scared or amazed. I tried to speak, but my voice didn't work. Not yet. Another figure stepped from the mist. Then another. They all kept their distance, forming a wide circle around me. Not to trap me, but to observe. A soft ringing filled the air, like 1,000 small chimes blowing in the breeze. That's when a figure different from the rest approached, smaller, cloaked in dark green, with a staff of woven branches. Unlike the others, this one spoke aloud. "Eli," the figure said gently. "The door answers only when the dreamer is ready." I wanted to ask 100 questions, but all I could say was, "Where am I?" The figure tilted its head. "You're in the hollow between, a place stitched together by forgotten dreams and old promises." Another one stepped forward and added, "You crossed into a realm made by those who needed it most, and now it needs you." I didn't understand. I wasn't anyone special. I was just a kid with a nightlight and some books and a bed that squeaked when I turned over. But they looked at me like I mattered, like I was the last page of a book that had been missing for years. "What do you mean, it needs me?" I asked. The one with the staff said, "The hollow is fading. The doors appear only when the world begins to forget. Each one of us came through once, just like you. And now the time has come for someone new to find the thread of memory." I stood there in that glowing forest, surrounded by beings that looked like stars had clothed themselves, and I tried to grasp what they were saying. "A thread?" I echoed. They all nodded, and then something in the air shifted. A hum, low and powerful, rippled through the trees. The chimes stopped. The light dimmed. The figure in green turned quickly to the others. "It's waking up again." "What is?" I asked. They all looked in one direction, into the deep, thick woods, and though I didn't see it yet, I felt it. Something old, something broken, something that had been asleep for too long. And now, it knew I was here. The forest grew quiet in a way that made silence feel loud. Every rustle stopped, every glowing leaf dimmed slightly, as if the trees themselves were holding their breath. And in the stillness, A sound began to grow. Not a roar, not a growl, something stranger. It sounded like pages turning, slow, heavy pages, as if the sky above me was made of parchment and something was flipping through it. Searching, the figure in green turned back to me, voice low but calm. Do not be afraid. The hollow remembers pain, but it does not wish to harm. I didn't move. I couldn't. My legs felt like they had grown roots into the glowing path beneath me. What is it? I finally whispered. They answered, it is what remains when dreams are forgotten and stories are left unfinished. It is the keeper of lost endings. It stirs only when someone new enters. And now, it is listening. My mind couldn't wrap around it. This was a place of dreams, beautiful and strange. But there was something sad here, too. Something that tugged on the edges of my thoughts, like an old memory I had once buried. Why me? I asked. The one with the shimmering cloth stepped forward and said, because you still believe. They all looked at me in that moment, not as a child, but as a key, as someone who had the power to do something important. I didn't know what that something was yet, but I felt its weight. You must find the thread, said the figure in green again, before the keeper forgets its name, and everything unravels. The mist parted, revealing a path leading deeper into the hollow. It wound between the enormous trees, past glowing pools of water and floating lanterns shaped like butterflies. But further down, the light grew thinner, and the hum of the keeper grew louder. I walked. With each step, the forest changed. I passed clocks hanging from branches, ticking backward. I saw staircases leading to nowhere, and bridges that crossed invisible rivers. There were whispers in the air, snippets of conversations from other lives, echoing softly like dreams people had once had, and then forgotten. I want to be an astronaut someday. She never told me why she left. I just wish he'd said goodbye. All around me, stories floated, abandoned, half-finished, waiting. I reached a clearing. In its center stood a tree unlike the others. Its bark was silver and its leaves shimmered like glass, and from one of its lowest branches hung a thread, barely visible, glowing faintly gold. It swayed gently, though there was no wind. I stepped closer. As soon as I touched it, images rushed into my mind. Stories, not just mine, others, dozens, hundreds, bits and pieces of lives never completed, chapters that had no endings. And among them, I saw my own, a moment I had almost forgotten, sitting on my bed at age 7, holding a book I never finished because I was afraid of the ending. I saw myself hide the book beneath my bed. I had told myself it didn't matter, that it was just a story, but it did matter. The hollow had remembered. A tear slipped down my cheek, and I didn't even know why. Maybe it was sadness. Maybe it was relief. I had found the thread of memory. The moment my fingers closed around it, the ground trembled gently, like something far beneath the surface had stirred. The keeper was near. And now, it was no longer waiting. From the other side of the clearing, the shadows deepened. A shape emerged, vast, slow, like something made from torn pages and forgotten letters. Its body was unreadable, but I could feel what it was. A creature born of stories lost to fear, to neglect, to time. And it was moving toward me. I held the thread tightly. The figures from earlier stood now in a wide circle around the edge of the clearing, their voices rising in a hum, a soft melody, ancient and wordless. It filled the air with something warm, something brave. The creature paused, and in that pause, I understood. The thread wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a solution. It was a memory, a promise that even lost stories could be found again. Even abandoned dreams could be finished. I stepped forward. I didn't run. I didn't hide. I held the golden thread in both hands and stepped toward the keeper. Its body moved like a tide, pages shifting, ink swirling, words breaking apart and reforming. It towered over the trees, yet didn't cast a shadow. Its presence was heavy but not cold, not evil. It felt tired, worn down by years of stories no one had finished, names that had been forgotten, dreams that had been buried beneath doubt and time. As I stood before it, I heard no roar, no threat, only a voice, many voices blending into one. "Why do you remember?" it asked. I swallowed hard, holding the thread tighter. "Because someone has to." The keeper watched me without eyes. I felt it more than I saw it. A vast mind stretching across time, searching, measuring, waiting. Then it spoke again. "Do you know what it means to remember? To carry what others have let go?" I nodded. It means feeling what they forgot. It means carrying weight that wasn't mine. But it also means hope, that it's not too late. A pause. The hum of the forest deepened. The figures who had brought me here stood silent now, hands folded, heads bowed. I stepped closer to the keeper and raised the thread. "I don't have all the answers," I whispered, "but I'm here, and I believe this matters." The keeper bent low, folding inward like a great book closing. The wind around us stopped. Every branch, every glowing leaf stilled, and the creature, made of 1,000 lost tales, reached forward and touched the thread, not with claws, not with force, but with memory. I saw it then, its true form. It was not a monster. It was a library, a living archive of every forgotten tale, every unfinished chapter, every whispered dream that someone, somewhere, once believed in. It had not come to harm me. It had come to ask, "Will you finish what was started?" And I said yes. The thread pulsed with golden light. It stretched upward, upward, into the sky, and then unraveled, weaving itself into the stars. One by one, the constellations reformed into stories. Glowing words danced across the sky, and the hollow itself came alive. The trees lifted their branches. The lanterns soared into the air. The beings who had guided me sang, and the keeper, no longer a beast of loss, began to dissolve into light. Its final words came softly. "Thank you, dreamer. The hollow remembers." A doorway appeared behind me, the same one from my bedroom wall. Only now the carvings glowed gold. I turned back to the figures who had watched over me. The one in green stepped forward and placed a hand over their heart. "You did what many could not. You remembered. You listened. You chose to finish the story." I smiled even though tears blurred my eyes. "Will I ever come back?" I asked. The figure nodded once. "When the hollow needs you again, the door will return." I stepped through, and in a blink, I was home, back in my bed, the fan spinning, the nightlight glowing. The wall was blank again, but something had changed. I slid out of bed and opened the drawer beside me. Beneath my notebooks and old comics was a book I hadn't touched in years, the one I never finished. I pulled it out and turned to the last chapter, and I began to read.